set, going. Wow. Let's start over. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I basically am having a sort of a little good day and bad day. The heat is horrible. Oh my god. It is so bad. But today it's not that bad. Really. And it's just my dad. But yeah, so we're back for another video. Another creepypasta. Yeah, so the weather hasn't been the best. It's been too hot. It was like 38 degrees, I believe. And then it went down to, I think it was 32. Then it went back up to like 38, 39. And then now, today, it's just down to like in the mid-20s, like say 25, 26. But yeah, we got popcorn. And today we're going to be reacting to a creepypasta story called Buddy's Night. So basically it's about a dummy, I guess. But anyway, the volume doesn't want to work. Well, how about I get the TV some popcorn? Might need some popcorn, yeah. You want some? Go for it. Take a handful. Fantastic entrance. My God.
October 30th.
That was
the
good.
night before Halloween was always a treat for me growing up. Each year, my mother would take me to the local toy store, which becomes converted into a Halloween shop. Living quite far away from the city, the toy shop was really the only place to purchase costumes, decorations, and other spooky novelties. So, whenever the sign reading Halloween sale went up in the shop, everyone knew it was that time of the year again. I'm not too sure why my mother always liked to wait until the day before Halloween to take me costume shopping. I think it might have something to do with money or work, though I'm not positive. Regardless of how much I begged for October, each year was always the same, and each year on October 30th, I would eagerly wait for my mother to get off work. The car pulled up in the driveway, and I couldn't help but grin my widest as I stared out of the living room window. Not 2 minutes after my mother walked in, I immediately asked her if she was ready to take me to the costume store. With a faint sigh, she smiled at me and told me to get in the car. Before she could even finish speaking, I was already halfway out of the house. Within moments, we were on our way to the store. Driving through our neighborhood was always the best. Seeing multiple houses decorated with numerous props and lights made me almost foam at the mouth in anticipation of the sweet treats I would soon be collecting. We had finally arrived at the store, and once again, before my mother could even turn off the car, I was outside, impatiently waiting for my mother to hurry up. She was taking her sweet time grabbing her purse, but she told me to head on in and to be careful. I quickly zigzagged my way through the parked cars, arriving at the orange and black entrance to the store. Opening the door, the bell chime rang out, echoing off the costumes and props. The store seemed somewhat devoid of customers, aside from a couple teens meandering around, as well as an old man sitting behind the counter. I rushed past the man, and lost myself in the aisles of clothes. I quickly found myself locked in a staring contest with two costumes I just couldn't decide on: a superhero or a faceless ghoul. Before I could make my decision, I had a bizarre sensation come over me. Like someone watching your every single move. almost like walking into a store and the cashier thinks you're a thief. I hesitantly looked around for signs of anyone looking at me. When I peeked around the corner I was standing on, in a chair, surrounded in cobwebs and bones, sat the creepiest puppet I had ever seen. The puppet had to be dressed in the most macabre suit I had ever laid eyes on, but its eyes were what crawled under my skin. Blank, wooden eyes which never blinked left me very uneasy. Even though I wanted to get back to my costume shopping, I found myself walking towards this toy. It was as if the store had melted around me, and all that was left were me and this puppet.
Oh gosh.
With each step bringing me closer to this thing, I could feel a weight in my chest begin to grow. Before I knew it, I was only a foot away from this toy, and I still couldn't turn away. Suddenly, the puppet's eyes shot down towards me, causing me to jump back. That's when the door chime rang out once more. When I looked back at the puppet, it was staring forward as it always had. My mother quickly found me and asked me if I was ready to check out.
Yes.
Confused, I looked down in my hand to find that I had apparently made my choice of costumes. I nervously nodded to my mother and left the store. Not before taking one more glance back at the puppet. The drive home, I couldn't seem to break my thoughts from what I had experienced in the store. Like any child, I tried to make excuses as to what had happened. And like any child, those excuses were broken by fear almost immediately. While it proved to be difficult, I eventually pushed the thoughts aside and managed to relax a little once we got home. A few hours later, my mother was cooking dinner and my father had finally gotten home from work. Hearing the door open, I rushed out of my room with my costume in hand, ready to impress him. I quietly waited for him to walk further into the living room so I could jump out and scare him. Just as I lunged out from my hiding spot, I froze.
Why?
In his hands, he held the puppet from earlier. I felt a lump grow in my throat as tiny beads of sweat began to form on my brow. He greeted me with a pat on my head, telling me that my costume was amazing. Something possessed me to squeak out the question, "Where did you get that puppet?" He chuckled a bit to himself and replied, "Oh, this thing? I stopped at the Halloween store and it was on sale. Creepy, huh?" he exclaimed, holding it out in front of me.
Get rid of
I
it.
slowly stepped back and ran off to my room. I'm not sure how long I sat in my room with my door shut. Minutes, an hour even. Nonetheless, my mother had called me to dinner. Sitting down with a shaky hand, I couldn't help but keep my eyes trained on the puppet, sitting on the recliner in the living room. It was perfectly angled to be looking
The
into the
hell
dining
was
room,
that?
right at me. No thanks to my dad.
It was outside.
After dinner, it was
God.
finally time for bed, and while I was getting changed and brushing my teeth, I heard the strangest of sounds. They sounded like the ticking of a clock, only louder. Though I had never experienced this sound in my house before. My mother tucked me into bed and wished me a good night before shutting my door. Though knowing this ominous toy was in my house, I couldn't bring myself to fall asleep. I wasn't sure what was wrong though, as I had never been afraid of puppets or dolls before. Clowns, perhaps, but not puppets. But this one was different. This puppet made me very nervous.
And slap you.
At around 2 a.m., an idea had crept its way inside my head. If I just throw it away, maybe no one will notice. I tossed off my blanket and tiptoed to my bedroom door. Just as I was about to turn the handle, I heard something coming from the other side. It sounded like ticking. Something told me not to open the door, but I forced my hand to twist the knob anyway.
Don't. Oh, you silly person.
The door creaked open, and there, sitting in the dark hallway, was the puppet. His eyes locked onto mine instantly. I felt my body begin to shake as I was too scared to move.
Oh, man.
Through the lightless hallway, I couldn't help but stare unwavering at this toy. Then, something creepy happened. The toy started to move. Its head twisted and jolted. Its eyes blinked and moved. Then its mouth opened. That's when the scariest part happened.
Oh, my God.
The puppet spoke to me. He said that he wasn't going to hurt me, and that he just wanted to be my friend.
Oh,
Might have been a child, but I knew
no,
this
no,
had
no,
to be
no,
a
no, no,
lie.
no, 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 no.
Sweat began to form once more on my skin as my throat blocked up. He told me how lonely he was, and how his only friend abandoned him years ago. He promised me that he would keep me safe just as long as I promised to be his friend. Hesitantly, I nodded to this lifeless object on the floor, and with a twitch from its head, he told me his name. Buddy. I walked over to Buddy, picking him up with clammy hands and brought him into my room. I spent the night talking with this puppet. He told me fantastic stories about creatures in the dark.
Okay, I
He
guess it's
told me
not that
about
bad.
his numerous adventures he had had. And eventually, I found
What are you
myself giggling aloud at this little toy. Moments later, my mother turned on my bedroom light with a tired look, asking me who I was talking to, and I simply pointed to Buddy. She told me to stop messing around and get to bed, or I wasn't going trick-or-treating tomorrow. I apologized to my mom and hurriedly jumped under the covers. After she left, Buddy told me something strange. She won't let you have any fun, you know. I shrugged it off and told Buddy, of course she will. She was just tired because I woke her up. Buddy replied, she was pretty upset. You won't get any candy. Frustrated, I told Buddy to relax and just go to sleep. Then my mother opened the door once again. She said, if you don't go to bed right now, then you're grounded. Tearfully, I nodded and closed my eyes. The last thing I heard before drifting off to sleep was Buddy whispering to me, told you so. The next day had arrived. Halloween was finally here, and while I stirred from my bed, I couldn't help but think about what happened last night. I asked Buddy how he slept, but he only answered me with silence. Brushing it off, I quietly opened the door. That's when I overheard my mother and father talking in the kitchen. She was saying how it might not be a good idea to let me go trick-or-treating this year. Hearing that made my heart come to a stop. My father told my mother that she was overreacting, which made me smile a bit, but he continued on saying that if she thought it was the best, then he wouldn't argue. My whole world shattered at that moment as I looked down at my costume. Then to Buddy, I tearfully asked my new friend what should I do, to which he didn't reply. I was beginning to think the whole event was just a weird dream until I walked towards my door again. I heard a click sound come from behind me. When I turned to look, Buddy was simply staring at me. But even though his expression never changed, I almost felt as if he felt sorry for me. Rubbing my reddened eyes, I smiled at him. After getting cleaned up and dressed, I emerged from my room, my dad remarking on how he thought I didn't like the puppet, obviously referring to last night. My mother didn't even look at me as she prepped dinner for the night. I felt something twinge inside of me and told my dad in frustration to mind his own damn business.
Oh.
My mother, slamming the knife down onto the cutting board, turned towards me and slapped me across the face.
Oh
The
my
red-hot
God.
sensation welled up in my face as I was forced to take a step back. She then proceeded to tell me not to ever disrespect my father again, and that Halloween was canceled this year. In a mad rush of tears and anger, I stormed back to my room and slammed my door, twice in fact. I I turned towards Buddy, still sitting atop of my bed, and told him what my mom had said. "Put on your costume," he said. Confused at first, I gave Buddy a smile. I knew that he was just trying to cheer me up, and he told me to do something strange. He said to set him outside the door and to shut it. Pausing for a moment, I picked him up and placed him in the hallway. In the middle of donning my costume, I heard a tremendous clatter emanating from the kitchen, followed by a couple small yelps. Panic overcame me and I rushed to my door.
Oh gosh.
Once the sound stopped, I slowly opened it. I found Buddy sitting in the hall just as I had left him before. Only he was facing me now. He then said, "It's time to go." In response, I felt my face light up with excitement as I quickly picked him up. The sun had fallen, and I couldn't wait to start trick-or-treating. As I walked through the kitchen, I couldn't help but notice jagged red streaks on the ground. But there were no signs of my parents.
Oh. What happened?
Letting the thought pass through me for a moment, it was quickly washed away when I looked down at Buddy. With a smile, I thrust open my door and walked out into the night. I wondered if anyone would like my new faceless school costume. If not, I bet they would still like to meet my new best friend.
What happened to his parents? Huh. Okay. I suppose I have a feeling that Buddy did something to his parents. My God. Oh, that was creepy. Oh my God, that was so creepy. Gosh. Well, that scared the life out of me. Okay. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Stay happy, stay awesome. And I will see you next time. Bye. Hope you don't get any nightmares. I might. Bye.